get so mad, there's no controlling me. My thoughts get so bad, I'm like, oh God, here goes. I lost all feeling from my head to my toes. You said some shit that I can't let go, so just stay tuned for the rest of the show.
Welcome to a very special episode of What If, and I'm delighted to have with me today the stars of AV World UK. So how about introducing yourselves? Kyle?
Hi, yeah, I'm Kiel Hillier. I'm the head of AV product at Northamber. I don't know what else you want to know about me. I can tell you all the loads of stuff, personal facts. So married father, part-time rugby coach, ex-football coach, film enthusiast, and love a podcast.
And also the main host?
Yeah, so the host, but I think we try to have it all three, but yeah, certainly the one that is, they have to give me that because I'm the gobbyist. So, and out of this three, that says an awful lot. So I'm the one that does the most of the talking and hosts the podcast and leads the guys into the conversations that we have on a weekly basis.
Lovely. Andy?
So I'm Andy Sharp, and I'm a product manager at Northamber. I'm a co-host, which means I get to have host in my title, but Carl has to do all the work. So when late in the evening, when he's doing the editing, I can go and put my feet up and watch TV. So
love it. Mark?
Wonderful. I'm also a co-host, apart from I just like the host in my name. I don't do any of the work, and I just have the northern voice of the show, which kind of is a little bit different than everybody else's as I listen back to all the podcasts.
But we can tell who you are, so that's great.
Absolutely. They know when I'm talking.
And I said to you all that I felt a little bit starstruck because people have been messaging me saying, do you know who they are? Who are they? And I think there's a bit of mystery not having a camera. Your podcast is audio, and it does force people to listen. So I think you're drawing on your senses, but sometimes when you're watching something like this, you might be looking at the background, and it's easy to get distracted. Whereas when it's audio, I think you've done something very clever, because we, as your audience, as a member of your audience, I find myself concentrating on what's being said, and even scrubbing back to, oh, I missed a bit.
Well, hopefully we'll sort of lift the curtain now and sort of reveal the mystery of who we are. And that was sort of a key part for us, was actually engaging with our audience in a way that allows them to access it wherever they may be. There's huge value in being able to see everyone and see our faces and our interaction, but for us, around the conversations that we are having, we're looking for it to be accessible in the car, or if they're driving, or wherever it might be, and the benefits of a true podcast in that sense. So we're glad that people are interacting or interested in it, certainly, and hopefully they'll be, by seeing us today, we'll put some faces to the voices. And
I will say this at the end as well, but if you're not following AV World UK on all the platforms, you need to, because this is the start of something really good. And it's great. And obviously I've met you in real life, which is rather novel, isn't it? It's strange having people on with me who I've actually met. So it's so we all know how tall we are and all of that, which is interesting. So I reached out to you when there was a little bit of controversy, tiny bit of controversy after the first episode, with a certain reference and a bit of a nervous laugh when you referred to the dancing robot, which the infamous dancing robot. And what you probably didn't know, or you might have known, was there was quite a large, there was quite a lot of discussion around its appropriateness. And there were people on both sides of the fence, and I can see both sides. So some people saw it as a real feat of engineering to create something, and took offense at people finding it offensive and saying, well, actually, that's the way your brain's wired, and you're seeing something that was not its intention. Others were saying, given that it was in Amsterdam and the references therein with, you know, with regards to certain aspects of Amsterdam nightlife, that they shouldn't be offended. And I think possibly the largest swell was, why do they need to use that depiction? We've worked so hard to come away from, and you actually mentioned I don't think you called them booth babes, but you mentioned that, you know, that at one of the shows that was a regular occurrence, and now it doesn't exist anymore. So having come away on one side, or you know, from that, to bring it back only a couple of years ago seemed to be a step backwards in terms of what you were portraying. And then there were people who were saying it's a robot, it doesn't have a gender, it's not, but it was designed in terms of how it was, you know, we all know it was designed, it was depicting a female. So I understand all sides of it. And personally, if that was a company I worked for, I wouldn't have been comfortable with it. That's just where I am. But I totally get that some people were kind of thinking that too much was made of it. So I just wanted to explore that with you, because you'd seen it in real life. I didn't see it in real life. We didn't go that year. So that was just before the big lockdown, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It was sort of the last one, and there was distinct sort of gaps within the space across ISC. I think from our side, obviously, being our first podcast, we're clearly going through some learning curves, and learning how we sort of come across, or how our points come across when being listened to. I think all of us, really, it was more of a point of shock, in all honesty, to have seen something like that. You know, we're very much, I'm not going to speak on behalf of all the guys, but I know that we're pretty united in our things, but in the camp of that's not necessary or needed. And as you said, sort of at the beginning, that sort of nervous laughter of, why would you have something like that in place? There was so many other fantastic things that we've seen at ISC, where we talked about, you know, robot arms on the Panasonic stand, moving screens all over the place, or huge LEDs which are depicting some fantastic, and projection and all sorts of things like that. To have something like that, and I think that the manufacturer did it for a shock value. It certainly was a talking point for a number of people, but from our side, I think certainly myself, more in the camp of, it's not necessary to have that kind of thing on a stand to advertise the product. It's not really relevant to the product that they were advertising. It's not the show for that. And it was more of a highlight from our side, as it being such an extreme thing to see at a trade show. As we go through the conversation on trade shows, and as you said, around sort of show, like you said, booth girls or show hosts, or however they're sort of the people who utilize on the stands, we have come a long way from that, and we're not in that anymore. There's still hosts on booths at pretty much every show. Most of them females, and people that are sort of hosting each booth. But certainly we've thankfully moved away from how they were portrayed, and how people were given outfits and certain things that I've seen from my many years of traveling to different trade shows. And I'm really grateful for that fact, that people are there to do a job, generally to make sure that they find the right place on a stand, or they've got a coffee or a sandwich or whatever it might be, and that's their job, and that's great. They don't need to be dressed inappropriately for that. And I'm glad that we've come away, but certainly just to address maybe the way that it came across wasn't completely the way that it was intended from our side, in as much as we weren't condoning that in any way, shape or form. It wasn't something that we found particularly funny. It was more of a shock factor of, why are people utilizing things like that to advertise a bracket product? And
I think listening to it, because I knew you, I knew it was I knew it was a nervous laugh, and I knew that was how you were. But I guess if and I know some people who didn't know you kind of went, what was what was that, you know, it was almost kind of like, wasn't that funny, and that kind of tone of it. Have any of you had any experience or seen and sort of witnessed anything that you thought was not quite right? Let's forget the robot now. Hopefully moving on from that, but yes, I think if you're open to seeing it, you're not blind to it, I think is the key thing. And it's easy to ignore when people just that's just the way that somebody is, or that oh, that's okay, and move on. Certainly, I think if you see people that are in either a position of power or professionally, or that they act the way that they act, and if you're not open to actually seeing things that you don't feel are right, you won't see them. And I think for all of us collectively with different experiences, and obviously lots of people don't know our full backgrounds and who we are and the things that have affected to us to lead us up to today. But I think one thing that we all have and all share is you know, a fairly strong moral compass. We have a pretty, you know, a pretty humorous outlook on life, and we like to have a laugh and a joke about things, but in the right way, hopefully. And one thing we don't like to do is cause offense or upset anybody or actively seek to offend anybody. It's always difficult, but you know, hopefully, as you said, you know us, and you know that it comes from a place of us, you know, looking to interact in a funny way. But I don't think you can up to this time and spend as long in the industry as we have without seeing things that you would think that that's not appropriate. And I think from having the strength to call that out and say that's not appropriate, I find that offensive, and I have done to people, colleagues in the past, have said, you know, I don't want to see that, or I don't find that funny, or I'm not interested in that. I don't share your opinion. Is probably the right place to start, but I know that there's tons more that we can be doing, and it's going to be an evolving thing. Like you said, you know, I think we share in a lot of ways your utopia of diversity, and you know, impacting that as the best we can is what we can try to do, and we'll always never get it right, but we'll try to, and at least make an effort to, and that's more than has been done, and hopefully more that we'll share that with further generations and try our best at all times to do the best we can. I'll be the first to say that I've made mistakes where I've used a term that actually was derogatory. It wasn't derogatory as such, but it was a label that was attached to, in America, meant something very different in America. And as soon as it was pointed out, you know, you've got to be open for people to just say, hang on a minute, do you know what that means for me?
Yeah.
Because especially working in an industry that is global, and where you are dealing with people from all sorts of backgrounds, you're not going to know everybody's cultural references. And I often see, and some of the things that my American colleagues might post on Twitter or say in a group, I kind of think, do you know what that means? In England, that means something completely different. You might not want to say that. So there are lots of things, like there are loads of learning moments, but you're absolutely right. You've got to be open to it. If you think that your way is the right way, that's where it gets a bit sticky and tricky, I think.
Closed-minded, wherever it might be. If you're open to listening to other people's, even if you don't agree with them, you may feel that you're right, but listening to other people and being willing to accept differences of opinion, differences of understanding, and differences, experiences of the world, that's always the best way, my view, to be, and taking back feedback, understanding where other people are coming from, listening, you know, taking that on board and adding to your experience. That's another experience for you to say, actually, you know, never maybe realize that somebody would find something that you've said offensive, but, you know, changing based on that or not, and maybe feeling that it's a, you know, valid way of you speaking if you've offended somebody, but, you know, that's still something that you've taken on board, and the ability to take that on board is really important.
Yeah, it
I think as you were talking about the I'm going to call it the video cast, if that, the podcast, the video casts, whichever way, if it enables one conversation about something, then it's worked. It has done its job, because that's exactly what this is for. It's for people to talk, to engage, to really understand different views. And I think that's what this will bring, the video cast, the podcasts. And I think it works whichever way of life you go. If you don't listen to people, if you don't see people, you will only ever see what you want to see and want to hear. And seeing is believing, hearing is listening is the good saying. You have to listen and you have to take everything on board.
It's really interesting. It's one of the things I want to do with our podcast, and I think the guys agree, is that it's the opportunity to explore these sorts of ideas and to have a bit of a chat about sorts of things. You never know what you don't know, right? So you get the opportunity to sort of open your mind a little bit. And that's why it's really nice that we get lots of different guests and all the different people who are coming in. We've got planned topics and guys coming in from different perspectives, and we can just talk about lots of different things. Sounds such a dull thing to say, but every day is a school day with these sorts of things. And it's really nice that we can go away and think, oh, I didn't know these things. And it's quite interesting.
One of my mantras is about trying to empower people to come to work as they are. Because if they're hiding something or trying to be something that they're not, because they think that their workplace or their employer or their colleagues want them to be a certain way, means that you're not getting the best out of that person, that colleague at all. And actually people feeling comfortable in their work environments to be who they truly are is really, really powerful. It can only be good.
Well, you're seeing your true colleague, who they are. It's not just their experience or their qualifications or whatever. It's we talk about it in sales about people buy from people, but if you're not buying from their true self, they're having to hide something, then that's not fair on them either. So them being themselves in their work environment is, that's a basic right. We go to work more than we're at home. So if you're having to hide who you really are, it's exactly. Unfortunately, none of us are in that position just yet. But if you're having to hide who you are for the majority of the time, then that's not right. It shouldn't be the way that it should be. You're doing great work, and I think from I've watched your episodes and what a fantastic thing to champion, and I really hope that whatever we can do to raise the exposure of the message that you're giving to the people that are following, we hope to do, because it's really valid and it's getting people talking, and so many people are positively talking about it, and hopefully the things that you're doing are creating that positive change in to a way that we all hope that it goes to, and really enjoy the content that you're putting out, and really enjoy the things that you're doing. So really appreciate the opportunity to come and join you.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.